The San Diego Padres continue to do what they do best, which is blow and absolutely implode in the final game against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Was this the final nail in what has truly been a miserable coffin of a season? We got to talk about that. There's a lot to talk about, guys. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Tuesday, August 8th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno. Or if you don't like my tweets that sometimes aren't always about baseball, sometimes, you can check out at LO_Padres. And then also, if you want to see whatever I'm wearing, if you're a video person, if you fancy the old YouTube, we're on YouTube too. Locked On Padres on YouTube. Pretty simple, pretty great. Go check that out. Rocking a little bit of a grapefruit moon shirt. One of my favorite shirts that I own. I just found it one day and it makes me happy. Everybody, please go check out the podcast and subscribe as usual wherever you get your pods from. Man, oh man. It's so funny that I don't want to take too much of a victory lap this episode because I don't even think I have much of a victory lap to take, but it's just every single time, man. Every single time there's any momentum or excitement for this 2023 Padres team, they kind of just explode. And they unfortunately did that yet again yesterday in a 13-7 loss against the Dodgers that we're going to recap. There's a lot to talk about, but not necessarily about this game in particular. It's just in terms of the season in general, what this says about the team. I think that the Padres are remarkably bad. I don't think that there's a level here of just exclusively poor team construction. I just think that there's been so much other stuff going on, and who knows if we find other things that go on behind the scenes. I mean, you never know, right? We have all this White Sox madness going on. We have the weirdness going on with the Baltimore Orioles. There's always usually organizational dysfunction to be found with teams that fail on a level like this, at least in my experience. Maybe that could be being partial to other sports as well. I'm just used to that. In basketball, it's not a coincidence when the same teams keep blowing up and there's been a similar change in either general managing or ownership. And that's what I think Padres fans have been wondering. And I think that this is just another sign of that. The 2023 Padres, man, they take a 5-0 lead in this game, hitting up Tony Gonsolin, who was actually quite good last year, although maybe a little bit misleading good-wise, gets blown up for 6 earned runs, ladies and gentlemen, in total in 6 innings. And a lot of those runs come at the very beginning of the game, in the bottom of the third, in fact, when our boy, Luis Campusano, hits a home run, and then Fernando Tatis Jr. gets a double, and then Manny Machado even chips in the sacrifice fly, up 5-0 to the Los Angeles Dodgers, in the final game of a set that you need to start winning these games. Obviously. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only time it's mattered, but it's just funny that, just knowing where they are below 500, trying to make the wild card race, right? Trying to get into one of those spots. You just made a couple of moves at the deadline, and this is what they have to show for it. In that next inning, right after, they didn't even give us a second. So I wonder, what do you guys think? Do you think it's better that they pulled the Band-Aid off immediately? Or do you think that you wish that they at least let us dream a little bit longer, like we're in the Matrix or whatever? Just let us enjoy the dream a little bit longer. Because after that, Seth Lugo has his biggest implosion of the season by far. Nothing is working. He generates no whiffs on any of his primary pitches, that being his sinker or curveball. He gets one on his four-seam fastball. The Dodgers hitters were ready. This is what can happen sometimes to a number 5 starter. But it really stinks because heading into this game, Seth Lugo had a 3.54 ERA. Now, something that longtime listeners know is I've always thought that Lugo was due for a bad start. I felt like he was overperforming his peripherals. I thought that he was giving up hard contact. His walk rate is okay. Like, he doesn't walk too many batters, but and he can get some strikeouts every now and then. But I just thought at some point, especially with pitchers who use a curveball like this, one that doesn't necessarily have the most break in the world, right? I should say vertical break in the world. That I just didn't think that this was going to continue forever. But even that being said, for it to happen in such spectacular fashion, I'm not taking any victory lap on this. I didn't think that he would then blow up like this, giving up 8 runs in 1 inning, ladies and gentlemen. And it's actually funny because during this game, I, being an idiot, had tweeted, like, I'm just shocked that they haven't hit a home run yet. Because they were hitting double after double. In fact, I think they hit, did they hit 3 doubles in a row? No, they hit 2 doubles in a row. One from David Peralta, then another one from Jason Hayward. Then Miguel Rojas getting a single. For those who don't know, Miguel Rojas is pretty terrible. And then the Mookie Betts grand slam right after I had tweeted about, I'm surprised that no one got a home run here. Once again, need to credit the Boston Red Sox deciding that Mookie Betts wasn't a player they wanted as part of their future. Congratulations to them. That has worked out very well. And it has worked out excellent for us Padres fans for sure. So again, if you ever just want to get mad irrationally, go get mad at Boston fans, I'm telling you. Or get mad at Boston sports in general. Blame them a little bit because it's their fault that Mookie Betts isn't on their team. Because they decided after years of winning titles and shaming the Yankees that they wanted to build their team philosophically in a way that was similar to the Rays, who have never won a World Series, right? So blame the Red Sox. It is clearly just money reasons that they're building the way they are. Don't listen to anyone that says that it's for strategy and all. It's not true. It's not true. At least I don't think so. I think that we'll see in the next coming years with what happens with the Red Sox, but that's a bit of a tangent. Yeah, like I said, it really stinks giving up that many runs. And then, as the Padres do all year, this is what they've done. They don't score, basically, again, until the bottom of the 6th inning when Luis Campusano hits an RBI single, and then Luis Campusano hits a home run in the bottom of the 9th. Luis Campusano is just a god amongst men, ladies and gentlemen. I am so thrilled with this guy. You have no idea. But again, just Lugo having the worst inning of the year for any Padres starter that I can think of, especially given the circumstances, the surrounding, circumstances of needing a win, it being against the Dodgers, the fact that you took a 5-0 lead against them just last inning, right? Like, that's just really, really, really dreadful in a lot of ways. So again, nothing you can really do about it, right? Like, this is just what the Padres have been doing all season, and it stinks, and I hate talking about it, to be honest with you. I know that I get mixed replies from people all the time, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who listen to my pod, and I appreciate you or watch it and just go about their day, but I do get things where it's like, you're being too negative. At one point I tweeted during the game, what the heck did I tweet? Where it was like, let me see if I can find, what did I tweet that got someone upset? Lugo was due for something like this, but 8 runs in 1 inning after taking a 5-0 lead. That's just the 2023 Padres right there. I think this was more about just such a microcosm of the Padres season versus an indictment on Lugo. I thought that Lugo was due. Again, let me be very clear. I thought he was due. In fact, I kind of thought maybe this would be the start, but I was thinking 5 runs in total. He struggles through 5 innings or something like that. Gives up a really one big shot or something like that because he gives up hard hit. Contacts a lot. And instead it was 8 in 1 inning. And I don't know what was going on there. I'm about to praise Luis Campusano in the next segment. But also, I do wonder a little bit what was going on with the pitch calling there, because there were moments when Lugo was shaking him off multiple times, and then he would throw a pitch and it was a ball 4, or it was getting laced for a double. I don't know. Now, granted, don't throw the ball. Don't hang a curveball for as long as the entire length of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then maybe you could blame Campusano for some of the calls, but that's just my kind of vibe, is that it was a really bad implosion by Seth Lugo, who had been pretty steady for the team all year. And it stinks because that was our 5th starter, and now we go into a bullpen day. Pretty rough. But before we talk about the Campusano hive and other things, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take just a quick second to talk to you about therapy. That's right. No jokes here, ladies and gentlemen, because mental health is no joke. Sometimes in life we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. I know I felt that last year when I was suffering through a lot of anxiety. I had no idea what was going on. I had never experienced it before. I didn't know what I was doing. That's why you need help. So whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, I mean, literally anything, therapy helps you stay connected with what you really want to be connected with and navigate in your life. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And like I said, I benefited from therapy before. It's really helpful. It helped me get back on track. It's one of the reasons I was struggling to put out episodes. What was it, like a year ago or so? I could not get myself to like sit still, and I was a mess. But thankfully, therapy is awesome, and you should give it a try. And BetterHelp is here to give you help. That's their name. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And you can just don't worry about it taking too long. You just have to fill out a quick questionnaire, and you'll get matched with a therapist that best suits you. And you can switch therapists if for some reason you don't like the current one. That's totally fine. I switch therapists as well. It's totally common, and you could do that for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp, folks. Really good stuff. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonmlb to get yourself a 10% discount off your first month just for listening to this whole podcast, guys. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonmlb. And we're back, everybody, here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Oh, man. Thank you again for making us your first listen every day. And feel free, if you would like, also to play us on the old SiriusXM app. That's right. I haven't mentioned that a lot. We're on the SiriusXM app. Yeah, good stuff, right? Really cool. So, we continue on. Unabated, ladies and gentlemen. The Luis Campusano hive is thriving right now. And I think that I want to take this second to genuinely say I really do think that the Padres have one of the best catching duos of the league right now. Gary Sanchez, I've mentioned this before. I talked about this on yesterday's episode, but he's been killing it. He's got he's basically having about as kind of unforeseen kind of career revival as I can remember for at least a catcher, right? Because it looked like he was falling off. Made a lot of mistakes with the Yankees. Then he goes to the Twins. He's not very successful there. And then this year, he's been playing better than he has since 2019, which says a lot because in 2019, he was pretty good. But this year, in just 56 games, he has a 1.5 F4, which is amazing. And he's got a 117 WRC plus, which is astounding. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, those numbers in a vacuum, for any position player, aren't incredible. But again, when you compare it to the overall stats of catchers in baseball, they usually have an 89 WRC plus. He's got a 117 in just 56 games. And a lot of that comes from slugging. Don't get me wrong. He's got a 511 slugging percentage, but that's kind of always what he's been. So I kind of don't think that this is all that just a lucky streak. Now, don't get me wrong. He started off on an unbelievable heater. It was like Gary Sanity, you know what I mean? Lid Sanity style. Those first week and a half or so with the Padres, where he was, he had an OPS of 900. It was insane. And I don't think that that's what he's going to have for the rest of the year, obviously. And he didn't. He ended up going through a slump. But when you take into account average catcher offensive value, Gary Sanchez has done that. And in fact, I think he's earned himself a 1 year little extension, especially when you consider that the Padres still have Luis Campusano, who we're talking about right now, obviously. You extend Gary for a year, give him some little flyer, I don't know, see what you can get him for, and then you have Campusano still. That gives you a nice tandem, and both of them have performed exceptionally well. So it's insane. It's really insane. It's one of the very few things that seems to have gone right in the second half for the Padres, where everything with the catching situations has been awesome. And the defensive liability that I think we were told Luis Campusano was going to be hasn't quite fully shown itself. In fact, he's been okay, not great defensively. I think he still needs some adjustments there, but again, he's been incredible. He's currently slashing 392, 342 on base, and a 536 slugging across 20 games, and he's got a WRC plus of 138. He's been incredible. And we're going to talk about him more, I think, on tomorrow's episode with my boy R.M. Layton to talk about prospect stuff. We are going to take a victory laugh too, actually, for the Hive, because me and him have been talking about this. He would text me all the time, be like, why aren't they starting him? And it was ridiculous. And that's my next point I want to go to is the fact that this team was starting Austin Nola as many times as it did is such an indictment on the organization and the management and the front office, it's insane. Like it's actually it's an abject failure for them to have been starting Austin Nola as many games as they did, and as many games in a row too. And this is back when Luis Campusano was healthy, by the way. I understand he got hurt. That is an important distinction, but I'm just saying, like, he was not starting, and I didn't understand why he would go 2 for 4 with a double and a single, and the very next night they'd start Nola. Like, don't get me wrong, Luis Campusano, some of his framing metrics aren't great behind the plate, like, for sure. I would argue, though, that the thing with that is we don't have enough data on him. I still want to see more. And I've said this before, and I've ranted about this before, that you can show me all the Baseball Reference framing metrics you want. I just refuse to believe that a kid who's been up and down so many times and has gotten so much inconsistent playing time that we know for a fact that if they stick him behind the plate for enough games, that he's going to be awful, right? That he's going to be like, what's the word? That he's going to cost the Padres like 5 wins. I'm watching Austin Nola, and I feel like he's costing us plenty of games as well. So it was my biggest issue. If we had Austin Hedges still, I would actually, like, it would be frustrating, but I'd understand it. I'd be like, okay, he's a good defensive catcher. And they want to make sure that the strength of this team is pitching, and they want to make sure with framing and, you know, throwing out runners and passed balls or whatever and calling games that they have like an expert defensive catcher. I could understand that, but with Noel, it's like he wasn't good at anything. Just go look up his framing metrics, guys. I mean, it just didn't make any sense, which is why I very meanly called him a nepotism baby for his brother, and that was the only explanation for why he could possibly get any playing time. But his brother ain't even doing that well either. Shout out to Aaron Nola. But that was my thing. I mean, again, he's in the 12th percentile of pitch framing. Like, there's a reason they sent him down. And Gary is not incredible there. He's not an incredible defensive catcher, but every now and then he could throw out a runner, and he's in the 46th percentile of framing. Again, not great, but he's making up for it with his bat. So I do want to preface that I'm not saying that the Gary and Campusano thing, that they are defensive wizards, but they deserve a lot of credit, especially Gary, because Blake Snell started catching on fire ever since he, came in. And both of them have been great. It's incredible how much better they've been at coming through, it feels like, for this team than the $400 million shortstop that they just spent on in Xander Bogaerts, who has 37 RBIs this season, and literally Gary Sanchez already has more in 50 less games, which I tweeted out yesterday. And that's pretty shameful. But again, it's kind of a reflection on the season. We were starting Austin Nola how many games? How many games were you and I folks watching where this guy struggled to get the ball out of the infield, and I think his slugging percentage was 190 by the time he got demoted. He was making really weak contact. He was having people steal on him. He wasn't necessarily framing all that well. Starting pitchers were performing worse with Musgrove and especially Blake Snell. And finally, it took, taking a chance on Gary Sanchez for the organization to realize that. Did they realize late that they lost the Ty France trade? I don't know. But look, that's the fact of the matter, is that the Padres have been a mess in so many different ways, and this is just yet again another example. I do want to shout out real quick, though. Ha-Seong Kim, low-key, is a 288 hitter now. Like, it's just... This Padres team, and this is what I want to end on real quick. And I've said this before, and again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but look, it's every game. There's games every day, right? Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, at some point, I don't necessarily have the same material. So again, my apologies. But this Padres team, like I said, is remarkably bad. And what I mean by remarkably bad is that it's not like they have awful talent and that they made the worst trades or all the worst signings, right? Ha-Seong Kim is an evidence of that. Joe Musgrove is evidence of that. Blake Snell is evidence of that. Juan Soto has been excellent despite how much they gave up. Trent Grisham has bounced back this year. Trent Grisham has actually delivered what I thought he was showing at the beginning of the year. It just took him a little bit of time to turn it around, but Trent Grisham is like really okay. As a 9-hitter who gives you a 102 WRC plus and good defense, I'll take it, man. Now, I will say his defense is oddly down this year. By the way, I don't think I've talked about this enough, but in terms of defensive runs saved, he's got 2 this year. Outs above average, he's got 6. Still good, but last year he had 8 defensive runs saved and 14 outs above average, so not as automatic defensively, I feel like Grisham this year. But still very good and capable. He's a great 9-hitter. He's a great bottom-of-the-lineup type of player because he's giving you value in the field as well, even if he's frustrating at the plate and not what he was in, the 2021 season, or at least the the 2021 first half season. Anyway, going on a tangent. But again, the Padres have a lot of stuff. And Tatis has come back and been mostly pretty effective in a lot of ways, despite the fact that he struggles at the plate sometimes because of a little bit of bad luck and just because he refuses to take any walks. This team, when you check Baseball Reference for what their adjusted projections should be, that they should be 8 games above 500 instead of 3 below. When you take into account that they're 0-10 in extra innings, that they have the worst record in the league in one-run games, that they have the second worst batting average with runners in scoring position, only next to the Oakland A's. They are remarkably bad. And this is actually, it's hopefully, I want to say this in a sense that means this is actually a thing to be optimistic about, which is it just in sports, when you're this bad and you have this much talent, you're getting unlucky in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying they're unlucky with how they've lost. They've played poorly. But to have this amount of, crashing down to earth, implosions, blowing leads, not being clutch, it's just not something that usually translates year to year. This isn't the NBA, where James Harden has been unclutch his whole career, and you could probably parlay that and project that going forward, as any smart person would have done this year in the playoffs against the Celtics, for example, right? Like, he's not a playoff performer. He never has been, right? That doesn't really happen in baseball. So that is one thing to look at, is you say, there's no way they can be this bad, this unclutch the next year. And to me, I think that that's a reflection on not just the management, but also on the players. Like, the players haven't played well. The fight in the team just isn't there. And I know that every time someone says this, people get upset. Manny Machado didn't like the word desperate as a descriptor of the team. I get it. And, Blake Snell and Josh Hader really don't want to get traded and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Part of me wonders if they're like, hey, I'm doing well here, and I want to get paid, and I don't want to change up mid-season when I got my contract coming in, right? Maybe. But I think more so, I don't doubt that the players believe in this team. I think they look at the same things we do, at least to a small extent. The run differential, the fact that they have plenty of players with a high WRC plus, that they've got elite defense, their starting pitching has been good all year. I think they look at that and they say, we should be a lot better than this. But they don't have the fight, and this is just what happens sometimes. And again, I think that this is a sign that potentially going forward next year, these things have to round themselves out. Happened in a similar way after 2021, where it was like literally all they had to do to make the playoffs this year was not have the biggest collapse in their franchise history in the second half. Next year, all they theoretically have to do is not have the worst clutch stats that the team has ever had in franchise history. That's not asking a lot in the grand scheme of things. If that makes any sense, it's a long-winded way of saying they've been so poor this year that it should rebound next year. But I just don't know if that's going to happen this year. I just don't. But before we kind of conclude on this podcast and take a look at what's happening ahead and maybe go into a couple more ridiculous ramblings, guys, let me talk to you about eBay Motors. It's great. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. That's right. You need the bullpen guys to come in and be clutch. They have not been that way for the Padres. Then you need the batters to hit and the pitching to be firing all cylinders. That's what you need. And you need the same for your vehicle, for parts that fit. Guys, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check when you're checking out parts. That way, when you assign your vehicle and you let them know what you got, they tell you, is this going to work? Because you don't want to know if it's not going to work. Imagine if at the trade deadline, you just had like a green check line that was like, yes, acquiring G-Man Choi and Garrett Cooper will net you +6 wins. Could you imagine that? Well, don't worry. eBay Motors on a smaller scale could do that for you guys. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Available only to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. And we're back. Everybody here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Woo! My Lord, our Lord. What is going on, everybody? We are back. Yeah, I mean, I was mentioning before the break just how bad they've been in close run games, that this should, a positive regression should happen next year. A regression to the mean, I should say, in terms of their clutch stats. It's just rough. It really is rough watching this team, and I've almost run out of things to say about them, but this is part of the reason why I was pretty bullish on wanting to trade Josh Hader and Blake Snell. I just didn't see it for the team this year. Now, going forward, there are other things to keep an eye on that could potentially turn the Padres season around, like the trade deadline, which I thought that they had done a very good job at. So far there, G-Man Choi, he's 0 for 8 with 3 walks, which still something. Garrett Cooper's 1 for 4. And more unfortunately is the pitching acquisitions for the Padres have not been very good. Specifically, the one that was worrisome is Scott Barlow. Rich Hill went 3 innings, gave up 6 earned runs. He's Rich Hill, though. I think that was like a throw in the onion ring with your side of French fries. I use that analogy too much. My apologies. But like, you just get that extra little treat because of the G-Man Choi trade, and you say, all right, this guy, we're going to need him to just make a spot start for us because Michael Wacha was hurt. Unfortunately, I think that he was just supposed to be a spot start guy that would come in, maybe a piggyback starter, maybe. And then you were hoping that Michael Wacha would be back soon. Unfortunately, regardless of if Michael Wacha comes back, the Joe Musgrove injury happens. But even still, I still don't think that the Padres starting pitching is that big of a deal. Not really. Like, I still think that if Darvish can turn it around, like, that would be excellent. And then you still have Snell, and then you're hoping that Lugo can bounce back, and then if you get Michael Wacha back, right? So, again, it's not great, but just telling you what we're thinking. Scott Barlow has been the real disappointment for the Padres. In just 3 1/3 innings, he's given up 8 earned runs. He looked great in his debut, sinker, everything. He was getting some swings and misses. He looked great. I was like, oh my gosh, we did it. And with Scott Barlow, again, there's a reason why they acquired this guy. All the expected stats said he was going to get better. And I still think he could. I still think he has good swing and miss stuff. I've said it before. For the 2021 and 2022 seasons, those 2 seasons combined, he had the 7th lowest ERA among all qualified relievers. Like, this is a good relief pitcher. The question is, did the Padres buy on a guy that is actually just kind of, washed and cooked now, or is this a guy that really is just getting unlucky and needs to just find his way? This wouldn't be the first time that a Padres reliever would come in at the deadline and struggle mightily before turning it around. I'm looking at you, Josh. But the other problem is there's no time to wait for people to turn it around. These guys have to be better. And again, I think it's too early to judge on the bats especially, but I would be worried about Scott Barlow and Rich Hill if he's going to have to be really crucial. Because over these next couple weeks, they play some good teams, ladies and gentlemen. They play the Seattle Mariners starting tonight for a 2-game set that I am very excited for. And then 4 against the Diamondbacks. And then I believe this is the part where I need to Google real quick. It's because they play someone in between the Diamondbacks. Give me 1 second. They'll play the Diamondbacks. The Orioles, that's right. The Baltimore Orioles currently in first place in their division. And then the Arizona Diamondbacks for 4 games. Then everything calms down. You get Miami, then you get Milwaukee, then you get the Cardinals, right? Like, you get a little bit of a break after that. But this is a crucial stretch. And dare I say, this is what decides the season. Because the Diamondbacks are a team that we're racing for that wild card spot. If you're able to go positive against them in those 7 games, that's huge. And that would potentially turn your season around completely. It would be the reverse that the Padres front office and the Padres players are expecting and hoping for. Whether or not they can do it is a whole nother story that I don't know if they're going to, because again, I just think that at some point the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same results. Or a more apt quote probably that I think you can think of is, whatever. What's the theory of whatever can't happen will happen? I know it's famous. I should probably Google this. What is it? Whatever can't happen will happen. Whatever can happen will happen. Is that what it is? Murphy's Law. All right, yeah. Things will go wrong in any given situation. Give them a chance. Or more commonly, whatever could go wrong will go wrong. That's what it's felt like with this Padres team for a lot of this season. There's probably some other quote that I could come up with to describe this Padres season. But again, we'll see. We'll see. And also, my other thing is... I remember the quote now. It's when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. That's how I feel about the Padres. That's the best quote, I think, I can come up with. This is dumb. Anyway, so going forward, I need to see more from Scott Barlow, and I need to just see that Rich Hill can come in and be whatever, just okay. As your 5th starter, could give you some innings, hopefully just get, hit into some ground balls, right? Pitch into some ground balls, run into those, and just hope that he's just going to give up 2 or 3 runs and that the offense can carry, right? So that's what I'm hoping. I need to see some turnaround from this bullpen because the bullpen is just in shambles. And as I mentioned many times, even when the bullpen had the 3rd best ERA in baseball, when you look deeper, win probability added, and with the high leverage situations, they were 16th and 15th, I think, respectively in those areas. So again, the Padres bullpen, everything about this team just has the loser energy. But we'll see. If it's going to happen, I am fairly confident in saying that this next stretch is when it has to happen. They cannot go under 500 here. They have to go better than 500 here for sure. And obviously, rest of the season, the games in September, some against the Dodgers, obviously. They've got a couple against the Rockies, which should theoretically help out, but we'll see. Because Lord knows the Padres are incapable of sweeping that team. It's what they need. Hey, the Mariners were looking pretty bad for a while, and the Mariners have won how many games? By the way, I thought the Mariners, out of all the disappointing teams, were going to turn it around. They've won, 5 in a row now? And now they face us, so that might turn into 8 in a row, or 7 in a row. So yeah, the Mariners have been on fire lately, so if they can catch fire, in theory, so can the Padres. I'm trying to be positive. I am, although to all the people that leave me bad comments and say I'm too negative or blah, 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 that tweet about the 2023 Padres and Lugo in 1 inning, someone told me to shut up. Look, that's not my job. I just try to analyze, and honestly, I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to have fun with you guys. I'm not a team insider. I'm not a guy I'm not press, or I'm not PR for the Padres, so I can't just be positive all the time. But we'll see. We'll see. I hope they do it. I really do. I hope they prove me wrong. And there's definitely certainly sign that they can prove me wrong. Hey, I mean, look, that Saturday game was something. It was the first time they showed some fight, like basically in 4 months, practically. So it's something. But man, oh man, is there a lot of bad stuff with this team. My only thing will be, and obviously we're going to talk about this down the line, is Preller, a lot of blame, but at some level, what's going on with these players? Like, come on, guys. Can you not blow every single game ever? Just that? Don't act like the Atlanta Falcons now. Or that other team from San Diego in the NFL. Now LA. Don't do that. Don't do that. We don't want that. No. With that all being said, guys, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Please go check out myself on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, or at LO_Padres, or the YouTube, whatever. You know what it is. SiriusXM. Go give that a little old check. We love the SiriusXM. They're great. We love them. Go check that out. Tomorrow's podcast likely going to be my chat with Aram Layton, and then after that, maybe a chat with Millard Thomas, then maybe some game recaps. I don't know. We might have to do a series preview, me and Millard. Maybe we won't have time for one of our fantasy drafts this week. I don't know. I got to hit him up after I upload this. So we'll see, guys. But until next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies. Take care.